Hey, what's going on guys, aarava here and welcome back to a brand new video today and another video about F1 2018 game ideas for career mode specifically. Obviously, we had one just a couple of days ago on Saturday. If you did miss that, by the way, be sure to click the top right annotation right now and you can go check that out. But those were 10 things that I wanted and you guys really enjoyed that video. The reaction was really positive in the comments as well, obviously very active, all of you guys giving your own suggestions. And so I thought I would do a second video and a kind of follow-up video basically of doing 10 things that you guys wanted basically, so ideas that I necessarily didn't even put forward but ones that I think are quite interesting to actually discuss in the video. And so do let me know in the comments below what you think of your own ideas essentially from the comments of last episode. But here we go, 10 more things we all want for F1 2018 or future F1 games really, because obviously, you know, we're in a bit of a sticky situation in terms of we're quite far into the development window technically, so yeah, major things probably won't actually make it into F1 2018 unfortunately, but you know, it's just ideas we're bouncing around for the future F1 games as well potentially, and just kind of, you know, a nice little wish list if you will that we can all kind of look over and kind of hope for basically for the next few years for F1. But let's get into it then. So number one, this was actually the top comment a few times. There's like 3 different comments with like well over 100 likes. I think one of them got nearly 300 likes on the last video basically in the comment section, which was pre-season testing. Now that's been shown up quite a few times in previous F1 games in terms of that desire to have kind of pre-season testing. Obviously they had something similar, which was the young driver test back in F1 2012, and then they kind of got rid of that. They introduced it and then they got rid of that, which is kind of being a pattern in a way sometimes with Cody's and F1, is they kind of bring in some new features which maybe they're kind of coming out from left field and then they kind of remove them again. I will say with pre-season testing, although it is a kind of you know, nice idea in terms of it sounds good, you know, obviously pre-season testing is a big part of Formula 1 for 2 weeks straight now. Last 2 weeks, all of us as F1 fans have been quite eagerly looking over what is pretty much useless testing times really, and we all get kind of overhyped about, you know, a certain team here and there, and then the season starts and everything's kind of washed away. But yeah, it's a big part of the sport really at the very start of the season. But the problem for me, and the question to you guys in the comments below, is maybe you have like some follow-up ideas of how would that really be implemented in a way which I'm just kind of, you know, playing a bit of devil's advocate here. I feel like it would get a little bit too repetitive and kind of just dull in a way after 2-3 seasons. I don't know how they would implement that in a way where it's actually different season to season and it keeps it interesting, because I feel like just like with the practice programs, it would become that kind of thing where it's more of a chore that you have to do at the start of the season with the preseason testing. I mean, obviously if you change teams it might be different. Maybe they can work in some storyline stuff with reliability issues for you potentially in the in the preseason testing. You know, it's a nice idea, but I think it would really have to have some really good refining to be implemented in a way that's not going to be boring. Moving on to number 2, and this is quite a broad idea, but just finer details of the F1 game just being there. And this was a main starter of going off the point I made about customization of the helmets and the gloves and whatnot, and just general player customization. Finer details of stuff like they used to have, again, a kind of thing they had in the past but took away, was helmet sponsors used to colorate to your team. So if you were driving for Ferrari, let's say, I think it was back in the day where they had Santander as a sponsor, the top of your visor would become Santander, or if you move to Red Bull, that would move to Renault on the top of the visor, or it would be Red Bull Racing, whatever it is, on the top of the visor. Little tweaks like that. Obviously, that could happen to your gloves as well, you know, having the team sponsor specifically, and just a bit more kind of integration of, okay, I'm a driver in F1, so why don't I have the actual sponsors from the team I'm driving on my bloody helmet, or on my actual, you know, race suit, or what it is, or on the outside of the car, or, you know, just little fine details again that, as I said in the last video, you know, it seems like such a small thing and you can easily brush it off, but it's things like small little things that add up that make a good single player experience when it comes to a single player career mode. It's not just the huge hard-hitting things, it's the little things that you appreciate as a player as you go through. You play in kind of RPG games, you can spend hours just getting lost in customization options, and it's a thing where it's kind of made its way into other sports games like FIFA, and it's a great addition to those games, so why can't it be a great addition to Formula 1 games? Number 3, and I actually really enjoyed this idea, so big up I can't remember the exact person who commented below, but really like this idea actually, and something that I kind of had in my head, but I didn't really know how to fully explain it, but driver perks and skills, almost like, I want to say, like if you play FIFA Pro Clubs, when you improve your Pro Club player, you basically have points to spend on perks of that player, so driver perks and skills, and that could be worked into its own maybe skill tree almost, almost, little perks or skills of just being good in the wet or, being, good in qualifying. I don't know exactly, again, this is kind of like with the idea number one, I opened the floor up to you guys in the comments of how do you think this would be implemented, but a way of maybe boosting how the car reacts a little bit in career mode, depending on how much work you've done on your driver perks. So maybe the traction is somehow in the coding made a little bit easier in the wet conditions, maybe if you've done enough kind of grinding to get that perk on your driver per se, because then it kind of becomes your own character, because obviously you just drive and it's kind of up to you to obviously as a driver, as a racer, just to become a little bit better. But in the game, physically in the game, can you build up your character to actually become this person that, by the end of season 10, maybe in the potential, hypothetical interviews that I suggested in the last video, maybe they home in on those, that those could be part of the interview questions of, okay, we know you're good in the wet because of the perk, the game realizes that you've got the perk, so it kind of asks in the interview questions, oh, so we know you're great in the wet, so you're looking forward to maybe, the weather forecast is for rain this afternoon in qualifying, so you're looking forward to it, blah, 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 and so you can kind of integrate it in that way. But, it's obviously one of the tricky things to implement in an F1 game rather than a FIFA game, because obviously it's a bit of a difference in terms of driving versus your, playing with a character on the pitch. But again, a nice, interesting idea coming from left field of something we've never seen in an F1 game yet, and it's just kind of thinking outside the box a little bit more. Number 4 is something the community as a whole for career mode, just the F1 game in general in terms of presentation style, has been raving on for a lot now, is the official broadcast layout, and I feel like with Liberty Media, there is the better opportunity to get the official broadcast layout in the game itself. I mean, one of the quotes from Liberty Media when they brought in the new logo and the new broadcast layout with the new fonting and everything like that was the fact they wanted better digital translation of that broadcast layout. So whether that means also including the digital, translation into the video game itself, that remains to be seen, but it would be quite cool, and I feel like that's something that Liberty Media will be open to doing, allowing the F1 game to use the official font, all the banners and everything like that, the drop down on the left hand side, the ladder system, because we already got a similar thing that obviously Cody's got for online. Why not just bring that over onto career mode and allow you to, either toggle it on and off if you want the full ladder or not? Because obviously, personally, for me, I wouldn't want it because it'd be a bit annoying, for my eyes visually to have an entire ladder whilst I'm racing, but it would be a good option, especially in replay cameras after you finish the offline race. Maybe you want to watch back the race, having an online ladder like that might be interesting, but also some of you might want the entire ladder whilst you race offline, so that may be a thing. But just generally, the offline broadcast layout is something that I think now for pretty much since 2010, pretty much been question marks of, why hasn't that been? I think it's a case of FOM. As I said, now with Liberty Media, maybe possibility. Number 5, more tracks and just more classic cars. Obviously, we had the classic cars and, different layouts of tracks returning for this year's game, but a lot of the, when the 2017 launch was happening, a lot of you guys in the community were kind of saying, why don't we have classic tracks back? Because we have the classic cars back, but what happened to the classic tracks? So maybe bring back some of the tracks we had in F1 2013, Jerez, just off the top of my head, I can't really remember Brands Hatch, just different classic tracks, and bring more, like Imola, bring in just random ones that F1's never gone to specifically. That's an issue with licensing, but it would be a cool idea. Just have tracks that F1 cars usually don't go on, have them in the game, or just, if the licensing's too much, then just literally old F1 circuits that aren't in use anymore, just bring them back and bring a lot more, because also that will help out with the classic events in career mode, adds a little bit more flavour there if we're not just doing a classic event on the Silverstone short rather than doing it on an interesting track like Jerez or Imola that we don't go on with the we don't go on in the normal career mode. We already do Silverstone. The Silverstone's short, yes, it's short, but it's still Silverstone at the end of the day, so why not bring in more classic tracks that we can actually do classic events on? It just makes sense kind of for the career mode, but also the mini games they have on the other game mode. Number 6, another idea someone brought up was player reliability issues, having an option to just have them be extreme a lot more often. Obviously, you guys who've watched my vanilla career mode will notice, obviously, a lot of the time I do luck into some positions due to AI retiring all the time, and specific AI will sometimes retire. Like, I think a lot of the time, especially in season 7 right now, my current career mode, it's Ferrari that just keep on having issues with reliability or just, poor luck of, issues with their car. And so why not have an option of toggling the chances of the reliability go up? Because I know for a fact that looking at the coding in the PC files, there is a chance bit of the code basically of whether your car is going to have a missing gear, or is the gearbox is going to go a little bit iffy, or if there's just reliability issues in general. So maybe that is a case of they could toggle that for those people that do want really big reliability issues in terms of having the opportunity to basically match the AI. Because at the moment, a lot of the time you can easily luck out with the AI, and as we mentioned at the end of the last video, AI already after the patch, the racing sometimes here and there is a little bit questionable. So having on top of that the luck you get from them retiring but not any of us retiring kind of just makes it sometimes a little bit kind of, okay, I'll take it, but it was a little bit of an easy race this time around because this and X, Y, and Z AI went out of the race and I didn't. So maybe just having an extreme mode where reliability really is quite tough for the player, and that kind of plays into back in the idea I had about resetting reliability every season or every 2 seasons, ramping up the issues you have at the start of the season. Maybe the chance of a failure is just skewed more towards the beginning of the season, and then the coding kind of just says, okay, we get past round 10 and it goes to this reliability. It was like 0.7, now it's 0.4 when we hit over round 10 maybe, or something like that. Number 7, and this is actually an idea that I told the dev guy specifically that would be great to have, like absolutely awesome to have in a future F1 game, back when the F1 2017 testing was happening at the Codemasters HQ. Story put into career mode, and having more of like a journey-esque kind of thing like FIFA has, of having multiple cutscenes, building a story arc around, it probably won't work over multiple seasons, so it might have to be a separate game mode from career mode, but make it like a story career mode where it's like 1 season long, but they, actually spend effort at, making a story around everything, having your guy in multiple cutscenes, and having it like the journey. And I mentioned that to Cody's, pretty much this time last year, whilst I was over there at the HQ, in terms of that'd be fantastic to have. Obviously, they gave me the answer. It's difficult to do something like that with the resources they have, but it would still be an amazing thing to have in the future. Let's say you could use the classic cars as well. That's actually another specific idea I suggested. That they announced to us at testing last year they were going to have like the things like the old RB from 2010, the RB, I can't remember the number, RB7, whatever it is. But I suggested that maybe you open up career mode with a cutscene of you driving the RB7 at like some show event as a GP2 driver, and then you get picked up. But if you do a good enough job, let's say it kind of times your lap time. Based on your lap time, maybe you either get a straight offer from Toro Rosso, or you get an offer from Sauber or something like that, and kind of build it into that and kind of use the classic cars and the other stuff you've got in the game a bit more to build a story arc around the career mode itself. And maybe that could be a fun little 1 season separate game mode away from normal career mode. You have the story career just like FIFA does. They have normal career mode and they also have the journey itself. So that would be very, very cool. But that's one of those ideas where it's so ambitious and so different that it would be something that I don't expect to ever happen really, unfortunately. And if it does, probably only like 10 years in advance or something like that. It's a bit too much of a step for F1, because the F1 game is not quite at the level where FIFA is, where they have the resources and the structure in Codemasters to chuck resources at a completely separate game mode like that and really go hammer and tong with cutscenes and stuff like that. But it's a very cool thing that one can wish for, obviously. Number 8. Now this didn't get many thumbs up, but I actually saw this and I was like, hang on, this is actually a really good point, and I've actually realised that this is actually something that's kind of subconsciously maybe annoyed me a little bit in the past with this career mode currently with 2017. Make a bigger deal between seasons. Like, you click one button and you go from Abu Dhabi to Australia straight away to click a button. Yes, you have the contract offers, but if you're like me, from season 6 to season 7, I didn't even have contract offers. So literally in a split second, you go from Abu Dhabi to Australia. Like, that's not how real life works. There should be more of a bigger deal made of the end of season. Maybe you have a cutscene. Again, goes back to the point I made about using your player more in cutscenes, because you've got your own character. It's cool to see him in cutscenes. Make a cutscene of him relaxing in the off season, doing some training in the gym. Create a little gym cutscene, and then you go into pre-season testing cutscene. Boom, just a little thing that's like last 1 minute of cutscenes, but it's enough to kind of just be like, okay, now we're transitioning, rather than okay, congratulations, you've struggled through an entire long 20 season career mode. Next year, remember, it's going to be 21 race career mode. good work. You've worked really hard for many, many hours of that season. Okay, now you're at the new season. Pop on, off you pop to the next season. It just seems like there's not much of a big deal about that, whereas in real life, it's a huge deal. You know, going from season to season is not an easy task for in any sport. You know, take it F1, football, whatever you want, rugby, yeah, whatever. You know, add in any sport you want. You know, season to season, it's a big deal in any sport. So I feel like they need to make more of it and make it a bit more special with cutscenes and just something more. I don't know, screens to manage, contracts to manage, I don't know. Just a bigger deal, basically. Number 9 that someone suggested was better commentary and just less robotic nature from Crofty and Anthony Davidson. Now, I know that, you know, I know myself, if I read off a script, like let's say I do a commentary for you guys and it's not kind of off the cuff, because most of my commentary is just off the cuff. I don't script any of the commentaries. I know for a fact that if I read it off a piece of paper, that it would sound a lot more robotic. It is difficult to read off a teleprompter and not sound robotic and not sound so structured when you versus doing off the cuff. But I feel like maybe that should be a thing they just work on. Maybe they just don't hand Crofty and Anthony Davidson the exact thing they want to say. Maybe they just kind of give them some prompters and then go, okay, so this is the opening cutscene. They set the scene. So Crofty, Ant, here's what's going to happen. We're going to open up. Basically, you're going to commentate over the start of the season, Australia. We're going to show some cutscenes of the cars, and we're just going to talk through some of the cars. Here are the few little things we want you to definitely mention, but anything around that, just go off. You know, it's your own thing. Do what you want, and it would sound a bit more natural because, yeah, it does sound very robotic. And after the 7th time of hearing it, it gets very annoying also to the ear, which to the point where in videos I don't bother showing it, and pretty much myself, whilst I'm going through it and recording it myself, I just skip through all the commentary because I've heard it enough times now. And it doesn't change after 10 seasons or 7 seasons. So, yeah, just a bit more variety. Obviously, again, I know, unfortunately, that's a thing where in FIFA, they spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours spending, you know, so many different lines, whereas obviously with F1, they don't have the time or the money probably to pay these guys to come in for ages and, you know, record it. It probably gets all done in like 1 week. You know, just, we've already had the game being delayed since the 2015 release in June, back and back and back. At this point, I would just be like, I don't mind if you release it late September, just take the effort to maybe spend 1 more week of recording more different commentary for, you know, season 5 onwards of the career mode, something like that. Just a little bit, you know, a bit more kind of refinement in that sense again. And then option number 10, which was a small thing, but also I kind of agree with it, but also at the same time, I can already say probably won't happen due to FOM and F1, you know, but option to turn off the halo, because obviously the halo from the T-Cam is pretty poor. It's pretty poor. You can't see most of the car. It pretty much ruins T-Cam, and pretty much I'm already going to predict that most people now going to next year's game are probably going to end up being forced to drive cockpit just for the sake of it looks better to look at than T-Cam. An option to kind of just make it disappear would be great. It's possible because the halo would be a separate part of the chassis, so they could kind of do a toggle on and off, but I highly doubt they would do that because I don't think F1 would allow it, because they'd kind of be like, no, we have the halo in real life, you have to have the halo in the game, it can't look different just for the fact the video game is want it to look different, you know, it's tough luck basically in that kind of department, but it is definitely obviously a big wishful thing that obviously was brought up in the comments, and something I can kind of agree with as well, especially after doing videos on Corsa with the halo mod itself. It's, yeah, definitely not exactly a looker on T-Cam for sure. But yeah, that has been 10 more things that we all wanted to see in F1 2018 or future career modes, as suggested by you guys in the comments below of the last video. If you guys have any more ideas, be sure to let me know in the comments below. As I said, I open up the floor to you to discuss. As I said, I asked you guys a few questions about the preseason testing implementation, whatnot. Do let me know about that stuff in the comments below. And I don't know if there are any more ideas you guys have, and there are enough ideas, maybe we do a third video about more ideas on F1 2018. But if you guys did enjoy the video, then hit the like button. If you're new around here, do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I have been aarava. Hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and I will see you guys next time.